Welcome to the very first episode of Iaddithis Bar Talk. Iaddithis Bar Talk is a podcast aimed to discuss lore, history, and stories the people have created on Iaddithis, with our very first guest ever, FS Seeker. Welcome. I think most people on Iaddithis know you by now, but for the people out there that don't know you, go ahead and
Yeah, of
introduce
course. Well,
yourself.
hello there, everyone, and hello there, Bloody. Before we start, I just wanted to say that it's a pleasure to be here, and I apologize in advance for my terrible accent. Well, what should I say? For those who haven't heard of me, my formal name, my lore name is Flav Sirius Mach, although most people tend to call me either Seeker or FS. I have joined Iaddithis more than a year ago, on the 1st of September 2021. Oh God, time really has flown, and I have been here ever since. In the long period of my stay, I've been a founding father and first consul of the Confederate Republic of Albia, and in this period, mayor and governor of its capital city, Novadomus. Afterwards, with Albia's defeat and its dissolution in World War One, I went into exile into the iced place of Eastern Iremia, where I founded Fides, the city where I still live to this day.
Alright, thank you, Seeker. I think that's a good summary of who you are in Iaddithis. So to start things off, and since we're at this amazing bar at Fides, I have to ask you, what is your favorite ring on Iaddithis and why?
Oh well, it's difficult, but I'd say some good old-fashioned Lemurian red wine. You see, well, it was an old drink, one of the oldest ever made in Iadelis. It was produced in the eastern Lemurian lands of Adia. Especially, it was produced in the vineyards of the town of Vinkip. Um, an old Albion friend of mine, who was called Lacold, used to send me crates and crates of it, and I just loved it. You know, the flavor. It was amazing. I remember that G the Crossbower, a dear friend of mine, served it so many times in his tavern in Novadomus. It was just the favorite drink of the Albians. It's just a shame that, after the fall of Lemur, they stopped producing it. And there are only few stocks left as of now.
It's a very interesting choice. I guess then we are lucky because I've managed to get two more bottles. To open this interview, let's have a toast together.
It's good. On yours.
I can see why you like this one so
Yeah.
much, but seems like I'm the better drinker here.
Well, it's a good flavor, that's the most important thing. The taste.
Now we had our sip of that very tasty wine. As the first real question of this interview, and since your veteran status on a server, what is your personal biggest achievements? What is the thing that you're most proud of what you achieved within Iaddithis?
Uh, uh, well, to be honest, it's hard to say. Mainly because I've changed my time many times about that. In the past, I guess I would have probably said Albia. Everything we achieved, everything we did, the foundations that we put, and the marks that we have left have been so vivid that, well, people still discuss about it now. They talk about it and argue about it on a regular basis. Well, I'd
Yeah, I
say,
have to agree with you there. Like, people still talk about Albia.
yeah, I'd say that despite its territorial fall, for me, that is one of my biggest victories.
I see, and I can definitely understand why I would choose Albia and Nova Domus in particular. I remember seeing it grow, the buildings, the political structure, even the Discord and the people that wanted to get involved in Albia. It scaled immensely. I think it's fair to say that Albia left a big mark on Iaddithis and its current landscape, as geographically and political. But what if I ask you to choose something else? You can't choose Albia. Would there be something else that you right now would say, like something more recently that is
Yeah.
something you're very proud of?
Well, in that case, I think I'd say Fides. In Nova Domus, and in general during the Albion days, I was just far too busy with politics to actually concentrate on building up the capital myself. And many other people did that, like Cap Knight or G the Crossbower or many other Albion builders. Um, Yet with Fides, I was finally able to freely express myself, to build my own dream town in the style that I preferred, constructing the things that I wanted to there to be.
Yeah. Mhm.
how may I put this? It's a magical experience, that I can tell you. Walking around in the streets that you dug, entering the houses that you have created block by block, witnessing the monuments that you have erected, nothing tops that.
So to follow up on that, I have to ask this because it was something I always kept wondering, and I still wonder till this day. Um, what led to the decision to leave Albia behind after its defeat in the First World War? The buildings were left intact. There was not that much grief going on. Why wasn't it reformed? We saw a lot of founding fathers, yourselves included, going either into exile or creating their own town or nation. Um, what's the story behind this?
Well, so I guess it's time for the confessions right now. Well, of course, there has been lots of talk after the fall of Alba about reforming it, and it's no big secret. I mean, of course, at the time, since the fall of Alba was still in many people's minds, I couldn't really say that I was doing that. I mean, it would be a death sentence, but we were programming it. There was a period that we were actually thinking of remaking Albia. And if you want to know about the thought process, it was as follows. And it was actually something that a dear friend of mine and yours, Verdikan, criticized of me in many talks. But our idea at the time was, in World War I, it's pretty sure that we're not surviving. Like, at the last day of the war, we came up with the conclusion that we were not going to survive. The nation, Alba, was not going to survive after that. So our reasoning was, we can try to split up and plant many seeds in Iaddithis. Seeds that in time will grow up and become flowers, trees, new plants, new nations, successor states of the old that in time can reunite with themselves and create a new Alba, a better one from the past, one that apparently wasn't able to defend itself in a proper way and avoid its fall. At least that was the reasoning at the time, but I guess that, with months passing by and with tensions rising, we never really get to unite, and in the end we just abandoned the idea. And instead we decided that it would have been better for all of us to keep our Albion identity, but to grow differently from one another into individuals' visions of Albia. There is the Ferian vision of Alba, there is the Terran vision of Alba, the Camarian vision of Alban. There are many ideas that still derive from the original one, but that are presented in different flavors. Yeah, and I believe that it is quite fascinating, because
I imagine there are still some weird reminders from the war, such as the betrayal that happened, disbelief. But yeah, if you look at the positive perspective of Albia's demise during the First World War, is that there are so many new nations that came to be, and some of them are still running till this day. I'm gonna use Camari as an example. They really
yeah,
started to blossom after the fall of Albia, and they really became a world power in the scene of Iaddithis. Um, that just goes to show how much impact Albia once had on this world, and they left their mark on this world. But knowing what you know now, do you regret any of the decisions that you made back in the day?
well, there were moments, especially during the times of the exile, during which I wondered about what I could have done differently. I always thought to myself, I have been soft when I needed to be harsh, harsh when I needed to be soft. I have trusted the wrong people and disregarded the right ones. I should have listened to that guy, I should have listened to the other one. At a certain point, I thought that my biggest mistake, the thing that I really regretted, was to leave Nova Domus or to go into exile in the first place. Giving in general to the demands of my opponents. Yet, as of now, I don't wish to change anything. Nor do I feel any regrets. Everything I did, be it good or be it bad, it helped me to understand where I'd been wrong. How could I have changed and matured, At the end of the day, all I did gave me important lessons and experiences that shaped me for the better. For example, if I hadn't left Nova, Fides would have never been born. imagine that we wouldn't be standing here into this building.
Yeah, for sure, and that just shows the beauty of Iaddithis and world building in general. One thing happens, and before you know, the reaction follows, and there's something different for you to experience next. So another question, and I think without a doubt you've made many memories on Iaddithis, some more fun than others. But what is your most fun memory on Iaddithis?
Well, to be honest, there are many. Yet the funniest moments I ever had were the ones experienced with my friends at the very start. You know, alongside G, Amy, and Hector. I had amazing laughs and really joyful moments that I shall never forget. Well, if I were to catch one single memory, I think that the one that I will never forget was just when we joined, you know. At the time, Novadomus was like, what, 2 or 3 buildings?
Yeah, I remember Noah Domus in the early
There
days.
was the general assembly, which I was building. There was G's Tavern, and then there was a storage house. Well, at the time, Emmy, my man, always loved to troll. And he would keep building non-stop these giant crosses everywhere. He just wouldn't stop. He knew that I was getting pissed about it, and he would keep doing that just to make me more pissed. But at the end of the day, I really loved it, and it made me laugh because every day I would just, log in on Iaddithis. I'd wake up and find a giant cross standing in front of me, and it's fun because from that, one of the biggest lore events would have happened that eventually would have shaped all of Iaddithis. Like, from those crosses, the cross of Antonio would have been made.
Oh yeah, Antonio the
Yeah.
Holy Bird. I remember.
Yeah, Antonio itself would have been, spawned as a character, and the whole Antonio arc of lore would begin. And thinking that all of this began from one single meme, it's just crazy, man.
Yeah, I remember the whole religion around Antonio being made up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I still see it as a nice piece of lore. The fact that you guys wrote a Bible, made up a religion, and much more.
Yeah, and I actually believe that this is the best thing about Iaddithis. From small things, you can talk to other people, you can engage into fun activities, you can create even lore about it. From the stupidest things, they can actually become an important part of the general world building aspect of the server. I mean, who would have ever thought that from one silly bird and a bunch of crosses scattered around, basically all of modern politics of Iaddithis would pop up? I would have.
Yeah, exactly, and I think that's great. That just one meme, a parrot, a cross, that becomes a holy bird can trigger bandit wars, discussions at the International Assembly, and much, much more. Just shows like how little people need to build a story and like how big this story can become. It's really amazing. And not only do the stories grow, but they become something that will be remembered by the next players, by old players, and that's how we are writing history in our world building server, and I really like that.
Yeah, I agree with you totally. It's just crazy and it's so fun. And well, as I said, this is probably the funniest memory that I have in Iaddithis.
So with all this talking about Albia, Novadomus, I want to go a little bit more in depth. How did you guys become Albia? What happened before? Was there any planning going on? The founding fathers, if I remember correctly, there was you, G the Crossbower, Emmy Noob, and Hector, I think.
Yeah.
So can you tell me a little bit more about how did Albia become Albia?
It's a long story. And to be fair, it's even longer than Iaddithis itself. Iaddithis was made, if I'm not wrong, on August the 15th. Correct me if I'm wrong. August the 15th.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, probably. Well, around that time, anyways. Mid-August. Whereas Albia, as an idea, came to be in May. You see, at that time, I had just bought my PC. And I was scrolling around in Minecraft videos, to look something for a format, for a new format in which I could have played a server on. And that's when I came across a video about stoneworks. I'm pretty sure you know about that. The Worldbuilding server, which is pretty famous.
Yeah, I think everybody knows stoneworks. That's also Iaddithis is inspired by stoneworks.
You know, at the time, that was my first ever introduction to Worldbuilding, and I loved it. I loved every second of it, and I thought to myself, I gotta make something out of this. And that's how the idea of Albia came to be. You see, when I make up names for nations, for cultures and everything in Worldbuilding, and lots of people are going to say that this is an original. I don't care. I love doing that. I just take Italian words and twist them and see what derives from it. And so when I started thinking of a name that would resemble, you know, a fictional country name from Italian, I took the word alba, which means you know, the sunrise, and I started twisting, playing around it with a while until I came up with Albia, and that's how the name came to be. And I remember that around in mid-May, I talked to G about it, and he was like, "Sure, that sounds like a cool idea." But you see, in about 1 month after the school ended, I went on an holiday. For us Italians, holidays are quite long, about 2 months long, and we stay away from the city. So I was away from my PC, and I actually stayed on a holiday with my IRL cousin, which is Hector, of course, one of the founding fathers of Albia. And I explained the idea to Hector, and I remember that together with him, we spent so many days figuring out the flag, you know, the kind of culture, where we would settle in stoneworks and everything. And I even worked on a constitution back then. And that was actually the first document or treaty, whatever you want to call it, that I've ever first written in Italian, then I've translated it to English. Because I wasn't acquainted to speaking that often in English. So I had to have an Italian basis. Anyways, when we came back from the holidays and we came back to our town, I tried to join Stoneworks to, you know, report to the others the situation. But, you know, walking around, I understood that if we actually wanted to have a proper world building experience, if we wanted to create our own nation, we couldn't do it on that server. And it's really shame, and it is mostly because the queue was too long for us. That was the first thing. The queue was just too long. You see, when I want to play on a world building server, I don't want to wait for hours just to have a possibility to log in. I want to be able to hop in and off at every moment. I don't want to spend time. You see, I even have a tight schedule. Back then, we had a tight schedule. We just began a new type of school, so we didn't have much time, and we had to invest that time in a proper manner. We couldn't wait around in queues.
Yeah, the queue you're bringing up right now is the reason that I created Iaddithis. I loved stoneworks too, and I experienced the queue as well. But other than that, I saw the potential. Like, there were so many people waiting in the queue to join and to experience world building through Minecraft, and that's why I created Iaddithis, to give people an alternative server to join
Well,
where they don't have to wait around.
Well, I'm very glad that you did, because that saved us, you know. I remember that after I'd seen what Stoneworks was, and after I'd seen that there was no space for us to start a new country, you know, I was just so sad. I thought to myself, wow, after an entire summer and holiday, during which I thought, you know, I fantasized about creating this new nation, nothing will come out of it. It was very disappointing for me. And that's when I found out about Iaddithis. And that's how we basically scratched the idea of building our newborn nation on Stoneworks. So now that that was out of the window, we had to find a new solution, a replacement. And that's when I started digging, you know. For like 2 days straight, I kept looking and looking and looking. And there was nothing. That was what really got to me. apart from stoneworks, there was absolutely nothing. No one really thought of doing something like that along those lines, but just better. It started with me, you know? And then that was when I saw it. One single post on Reddit posted by Verdicant Games or something like that along those lines on the Stoneworks Reddit that talked about this new Phantomatic, this new server, you know, that had the whole concept of Stoneworks, but people could actually play in it. And that's how I got to know about Iaddithis.
Yeah, I'm really glad you found out about Iaddithis, because you guys were the very first people that showed like a regular activity level on the server, and that initially helped us grow at scale to the server that we are today.
Of course, I do believe that personally the environment of Iaddithis is irreplaceable, and even the history, you know, it's so much united. There is this sense of belonging to the server, this sense of community and purpose, which isn't really found anywhere else. Yeah, and anyways, as I was saying, that's when we found it. So I immediately phoned G, and he was like, "Are you sure? I'm not so sure about this. Should we do it? I mean, it seems like a lot of work." But I told him, "Nah, whatever. I will start scouting a bit. As soon as you can, get on and we'll start playing." And I joined. And I remember that the server back then was empty. Empty apart from two individuals. Pumpkin Pie, who still plays to this day, and Pete Matic, who I haven't seen for months. I don't know what he ended up to. And I spawned in a taiga. And I started exploring. I explored. I traversed thousands of blocks. I remember that at a certain point, I got across a nice looking location. A sort of valley, you know, in the middle of a few hills. There were lots of flowers around, lots of trees. And I thought, okay, this is the place. I will make my town over here. And I headed it. I was preparing to place the first blocks when I noticed the first hut, you know, a little shut, you know, that had already been made, a little house. So I placed a few signs like FS Seeker has already been here, seek for Albia or something like that. And recently, I have just found out from the community media channel in the Discord that those signs have actually survived all the way until now, and people have found them. So
Yeah, I saw that earlier too. I think it's crazy.
yeah, that's crazy. They date even before Albia, so they're one of the oldest, you could say, archaeological findings in Ayat. And
Like
anyway,
those signs must be over 1 year old. Let's hope nobody's going to destroy them now.
oh, no, let's hope not. Come on. Uh, and and anyways, that's so I kept exploring until I came across the place where I would eventually, you know, found Nova Domus. And so I phoned once again, um, G, and I told him, "Okay, man, you must come online. I think I found a place." So he started looking around, and the first thing he said was, "I don't like it."
Really?
Yeah. Up until I believe 1 month of life of Albia, G was still not sure about the place where Nova Domus had been made. It was like, I don't know. Yeah, too many hills, you know. Nah, I would look for another place, bro. We've already made buildings. What do you mean? and that's a bit funny to think about because, you know, the whole place where everything began, one of the founding fathers wasn't so sure about it, you know, he didn't like it so much. Yet in the end, we decided that was the moment, the place where we should have started. And so we started digging, placing blocks. And that was when Amy joined. Amy was one of the, of course, was one of the founding fathers, one of the first ones of the server and Albia. And he joined, as I already told you, as a memer, as a troller. At the beginning, he didn't care that much. He was just there to have fun, which was the best thing. um, and we all had fun with each other. That was the greatest thing. So he joined. He made crosses around, but he also was very useful. He helped us to make, crops, to have crops, food. He kept animals, and then after like one day after Amy joined, Hector joined too. So that was it. Uh, but yeah, and I think those were the first times, the first moments of Albia.
Hearing you talk about these memories really brings back some memories from myself as well. Like I witnessed Nova was being built up from its early buildings to what it would become before it got well, technically destroyed in the First World War. And I really have to thank you for choosing Iaddithis as the server to settle on, because how you want to put it, Novodomus played a really big part in shaping Iaddithis, getting player activity, and so much more.
No, I have to thank you because without Iadris, there would have been no Albia. So at the end of the day, we have to thank each other.
I'm really glad that I was able to witness from such a close distance to see how Albia developed, how you guys met new people, were a group of friends, and who expanded to such a big nation, and meeting so many new faces along the way. I think you guys had an amazing journey on Iaddithis.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, there is also something extremely important and positive about Iadris, that it made me meet an enormous amount of people from other realities, from other places which I could have never spoken to otherwise. If I were to talk to you about the most important people that I've met, well, there were tons of them. So many people and friends that I've made. Well, let's say, like, I have to talk about Agapitikos or Dimitri, the Ferian leaders, Lat, the leader of Avasin, Cup Knight, my dear friend that still aids me to this day in Fides. Of course, Matstavas, my foreign minister, the regent, while I was gone, he carried on in Terra Orientis, and he has been basically my right-hand man in so many occasions. When I was alone against the Ward, for example, during the first Camarian War, he was there with me, despite everything. And that shows some dedication. Username during the Donslow period. But of course, I'm sure I'm forgetting about an enormous amount of other people.
I can also imagine, especially as a nation leader, not everything was always as fun and as easy, and there must have been some stressful moments, and probably along the way you have made some enemies on Iaddithis as well.
Well, actually, even today, a lot of my political opponents used to tell me, you have been bad. You have been a bad politician, a bad leader, because you had tons of enemies. And I usually answer to them through Charles Mackay's words, who wrote a poem, You Have No Enemies, which goes, you have no enemies, you say. Alas, my friend, the boast is poor. He who has mingled in the fray of duty, that the brave endure, must have made foes. If you have none, small is the work that you have done. And this is the way how I think about it, If you have no enemies, have you truly done something? Have you taken some real positions? Have you told the people what you want to do? How you want to do it? What kind of impact did you have?
Yeah, I think that poem definitely summarizes how Albia was run. Like, even with the opposition that you guys faced, the war declaration, the eventual war, you guys stood for what you believed in, and I think most of us can agree that and respect you guys for the way you handled things, even though not everyone may have agreed with the ways or the paths that you
Of course.
took.
Well, again, one must put it into perspective. At the end of the day, it's a block game. One must not get too much heated about it.
Yeah, I understand that. You have your enemies in game, but you have to realize it's just a game at the end of the day, and you're here to have fun. So as a last question for today, especially because you're a veteran, you've been here for over a year, you've seen how the server developed, you've seen the changes we've been going through, you are very aware of its current state. Do you think that there is a future for veterans and new players coming to Iaddithis?
Well, there is a future on Iaddithis as long as people believe in it. This is something that I always tell people. As long as there will be one single person playing Iaddithis, Iaddithis will live on. Um, there is a future for Iaddithis because in a way or another, people still log in every day. They build, they create, they make lore. People must learn to get together with each other, to understand the risks of dangers and world building, to enjoy it at the same time, to live on, to pass on about the dangers of war, for example, of role play, and to talk with each other. That is the most important thing. As of now, people are stuck in their own little world, in their little garden, and they don't explore the world anymore. They don't go around and talk to the people of the nearby nation. We did that back in the Albion days. We explored. We went from town to town, listening to the stories of the other people. That's how interactions are born. It's also about trusting your fellow player. Not living in the mindset, my lore is the better one, yours, I just don't care about it. One must be able to see the other's point of view and even take it into your own personal story. At the end of the day, everything that happens, it still happens in Iaddithis. Even if you just pass on it by, if you witness it on the road, if you are traveling by and you see, for example, I don't know, a beggar on the street, in a way or in another, it affects you. And you can build up around that. You can build up on the effects that it has on your character, on the effects that it has on your behavior, and then continue from it. That is something that we did.
Yeah, and that's what I like about the server, that these interactions people have with each other, they could be the origin of something new, a new religion, a new cult, a new group, a new nation. Um, and I think that's what you described perfectly. Everything that you do or your character does have an impact on the world. Yeah, like we're not alone on Iaddithis. We're all part of this one big connected realm that we're sharing.
Yes. You see, many people treat it as a sort of passive world, where their actions are only finalized to their small region or to their small lore arc that has no repercussions for other regions of the world. We must understand that in a way or another, we still live in a sort of interconnected world, as interconnected as a Minecraft server can be.
Yeah, 100%, I agree with you.
Things change, and change is brought by the players. And it's the players that must be able to welcome this change. This is the only way that Iaddithis can be assured the true future. And to be honest, I'm positive about it. I've never been more positive. You see, not many people tend to notice it, but players are joining, lore is being made, new guilds are being born. Whereas many people in the past, in many months ago, saw the fall of a server, I see the rebirth of one. Now, I've played my part, mostly. Now it's up, and this is a personal appeal, to all of you. To everyone who's listening to my words, to everyone who's listening to this podcast. For 1 year and about, 5 or 6 months, I have been here trying to connect people, connect others' histories, to create and to spread. And now it's up to you. You must do it because you're the only ones. You're the only ones that can. And I'm sure, 100% positive, that you will make it. And you will shape Iaddithis into the dream server that is meant to be, and that will become. So if there were to be an appeal to veterans and new players, this is the one.
Yeah, that's something I want to emphasize as well. The most fun experiences people had was because of the things that the players created. It was not something we as a staff team did, it was what you guys did. And I think, and I still believe that we can do this, and all players, new players alike, I'm sure you guys can have a great time here. Um, Other than that, I want to thank you, FS Seeker. We have to round it up. I want to thank you so much for taking your time to have this talk with me.
No, I want to thank you for giving me this amazing opportunity to share my insights, to talk a bit. We don't talk that often nowadays, and it's a shame. It has also been great to hear from you. Well, we haven't heard from each other in a bit, at least talking in VC with each other, so it's great. We should do that more often.
Yeah, I agree. We should definitely do it more often. It was definitely fun catching up with you, and I really want to thank you again for sharing your thoughts and your insights about Iaddithis and your nation as a whole. And take care, man.
It was my pleasure. Take care, you too.